And I yield to the gentleman, Mr. Biggs from Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, my friend from Georgia, for yielding to me. This is a very important topic, and it is, I'm going to touch on this by beginning with this idea of the distinction between the current administration and its foreign policy as outlined in the recent statement from President Trump and that of our previous administration. The distinction is very clear. The previous administration basically clung to an idea of neoliberal institutionalism. That is to say, where there was a vacuum of power, we did not set the stage. America did not fill it. It remained a vacuum. The idea being that an institution would fill that. Maybe the United Nations, maybe some other regional institution. But in doing so, we ceded over much of our sovereignty, and we failed to act to preserve and protect America's best interests. The current administration is taking a more realistic point of view. They are realists. And that is, America's interest will be first and paramount, and we'll see to it. And we will foster alliances, foster participation with our fellow nations to preserve America's best interests. When America is strong, there is greater chance for peace in the world. I believe that. That is the position of realists all the way back to Grotius, through Hans Morgenthau. Even neorealists like Kenneth Waltz might agree. Well, one thing that we know is that this particular episode, which unfolds, is a scandalous episode that put America in greater danger, probably and perhaps in order to foster political gains by the previous administration. One Treasury Department official who served in the Obama administration testified to the House Committee on Foreign Affairs that under the Obama administration, these Hezbollah-related investigations were tamped down for fear of rocking the boat with Iran and jeopardizing the nuclear deal. And that becomes the heart and the rationale for how this administration, the previous administration, handled a political decision instead of a foreign policy, national security decision. So, we know a number of things that took place, and this is why the House needs to expand, or excuse me, it needs to conduct its own investigation so we can know how this played out, why this played out, who's responsible, and we can resolve never to do this again. We had the Project Cassandra. This was a DEA campaign designed to expose a money laundering scheme in which Latin American drug running to Hezbollah. Well, Hezbollah is a pro-Iranian Lebanese militia, and it has been a foreign terrorist organization since 1997. It was so designated. It fosters alliance with rogue nations such as North Korea, Iran, and it is violently anti-Israel and anti-United States. It was seen that it had become a player in an international cocaine trafficking, and using the proceeds of that international trafficking, drug trafficking, to purchase explosives, EFPs, which is the deadliest type of IED used against American soldiers in Iraq. EFPs killed hundreds of American soldiers, and they were supplied by the Iranian government and its Hezbollah allies. EFPs were literally ripping M1 Abrams tanks in half. It is a weapon that makes all armor protection you have irrelevant. Mere threats of EFPs shut down all ground supply routes near American bases on the Iranian border. The result? Cut off the head, the financing of Hezbollah through these international cocaine distribution routes. Project Cassandra was born in 2008. It found clear evidence that Hezbollah had grown from a Middle East-focused military and political organization into the international crime syndicate, likely collecting somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 billion a year from drug and weapons trafficking, money laundering, and other criminal activities. For 8 years, DEA agents conducted high-stakes investigations, dangerous investigations, using technology as well as undercover operations and informants. That type of capital is expensive and dangerous. The result was to map these illicit drug networks. And with the help, they did this through the help of 30 U.S. and foreign security agencies. They saw a worldwide, far-flung international drug traffic from South America to Africa, from Europe to the Middle East, and in the United States, where drug funds were funneled through an array of businesses, including used car lots. Well, what happened? As we saw the previous administration's desire and design to leave a signature legacy foreign policy a win, the negotiations for the Iran nuclear deal began going and were in place. Project Cassandra agents say the Justice and Treasury Departments repeatedly hindered their attempts to pursue these investigations, the prosecutions, arrests, and financial sanctions against the key figures in this far-reaching drug scheme. This was a policy decision. It was a systematic decision. David Asher is quoted as saying, "They serially ripped apart this entire effort that was very well supported and resourced, and it was done from the top down." They didn't bring criminal charges. They didn't continue to pursue these Hezbollah members. They didn't pursue the banks that were laundering those billions in drug profits. Instead, they tore down the apparatus that was working on apprehending the head of the snake. Well, we're going to go on with this. We need to go on with this. We need to investigate this further. This type of political decision that impacts and actually works crosswise to our very purpose in the Mideast must be stopped. And we must find out why that happened. And those who allowed our men and women to be put in harm's way for a political decision need to be held accountable. And so, Mr. Speaker, those who cling to the neoliberal institutionalist mantra, who rely on multilateral institutions rather than putting America first, they're the ones that produce this result. We're going to find out more in the coming weeks. My request is that the leadership in Congress, in this House of Representatives, instigate and prosecute an investigation to get to the bottom of this very heinous and very wrong-headed and dangerous decision. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back to my good friend from Georgia. I thank him for his allowing me to participate.